said, my name is John Banghoff, first year master's student here, working with Matt Cumgen and Dave Senzard. You can see the picture here of me in front of the Moore tornado back in 2013. I did go to the Ohio State University from an undergrad. Go ahead and get the booze out now. That's fine. But this is the extent of my Ohio State stuff that I will include in this presentation today. As Andy said, I'll be talking a little bit about the storm last week. There's not a whole lot of exciting weather going on right now, so bear with me as we kind of go through this together. Here is a nice graphical depiction of the snowfall totals from the storm, blizzard, and spot. Certainly not a blizzard here. As you can see, extensive band of snowfall from central Pennsylvania all the way up northeast, really through Maine. I cut that off for purposes here. Some impressive totals: Binghamton, Oneonta area, 2 to 3 feet in some spots. Here in State College, we did it up kind of on that gradient. Ended up getting anywhere between 6 and 15 inches here in Centre County. The difficulty with this forecast was really figuring out where that gradient was going to line up. Some of the models were not in agreement, anywhere between like 2 feet for here and down as low as 4 or 5 inches at some of the runs. But all in all, a pretty good forecast. We did have classes canceled. Talked to some alumni over the past couple weeks who always said, back when I went to school at Penn State, we never closed. And so we were fortunate, I think, to have classes canceled that particular day. Now, looking at some of the recaps of the system, this was the 0Z run on March 12th, a few days before the storm. As I was looking at this, I personally was rooting that this model would have accurately represented everything. You can see the bullseye of snowfall right over central Pennsylvania, really just east of here. As I said, we didn't end up with nearly that much, and this NAM run did not verify in any respect, but it's fun to dream, certainly. National Weather Service and State College, the official forecast issued pretty good overall. Certainly a higher totals a little bit farther to the east. As I said, this gradient was really difficult to forecast leading into it, and I think in particular the National Weather Service here did a great job of communicating uncertainty. Again, where that gradient lined up was going to be very important. The totals ended up being a little bit lesser as we headed out west of here, but all in all, pretty good communication. Weather Channel forecast, just to kind of give a rundown. I think part of the reason why State College was so underdone is because honestly, it's not that big of a focus for them, central Pennsylvania, so you can see higher totals up to the northeast. Another big and interesting story that came with this storm was the gradient that set up across the I-90 corridor. DC, Philadelphia, New York, all the way up into Boston. A lot of controversy that was discussed in the National Weather Service, seeing some of the models kind of back off on snowfall totals, but deciding to continue with what they had, the products that issued just for consistency purposes. This whole dichotomy of, do we get the snowfall total right, or do we make sure people are continually prepared and don't let their guard down? So certainly something that's been talked about in the field and will continue to be talked about. But all in all, this forecast was pretty solid as well. And last but not least, the Campus Weather Service did a pretty remarkable job forecasting. I think this was issued like the day before the storm, and did a pretty nice job. Certainly the highest totals are a little bit farther off to the north and west, but specifically here in central Pennsylvania, the gradient was set up pretty nicely and matched up pretty well with what actually fell. So to all of you guys in the Campus Weather Service, very nice job. Now, some storm total snowfall from the National Weather Service, different reports that came in. I was pretty impressed by this, certainly to see the disparity between Phillipsburg, a little bit farther west here in Centre County, versus Collier-Bollesburg area on the east side. I set my alarm for like 5:15, I think that morning, just to kind of check out how the snow was falling. And at that point, there was a pretty heavy band just to the east here in State College that was in the Bollesburg region. And I knew that our snowfall totals weren't going to be nearly as high. And then later that afternoon, actually chuckled when there was another band of snow showers that set up just to our west. It didn't quite come over here. Still ended up with 10.1, I think, here at Walker Building 9 over at the National Weather Service and State College. So all in all, a pretty good storm. Certainly I've talked to a lot of people who have been here in winters past, and it seems like State College sometimes doesn't end up with the highest totals in the area, but still certainly an impactful storm, and a lot of fun going sledding and enjoying that snow day last week. Another funny thing here, I don't know if you guys may or may not have seen this. This is up in the Northeast, one of the Amtrak avalanches, as I've called it. This video went pretty viral. You can see people standing here waiting for the Amtrak to come. Then there's just this gigantic avalanche of snow plastering all these people. They have their phones out, got some good video. but maybe not the most fun in the process. Would like to show now a nice kind of loop of the radar image. Found this on Twitter. Twitter is a pretty great place for weather ideas if you don't have a whole lot, so I recommend that certainly. But it's a pretty impressive radar loop. You can see that the snow showers started in Pennsylvania probably about 11 o'clock on Monday night, I guess. And then you can see some really heavy bands of snow. The rain-snow line really set up pretty much through central New Jersey for much of the evening. And the snowfall disparity between northern and southern Jersey was certainly impressive. But you can see, especially if you focus it on Binghamton, kind of there in south central New York, these snow bands just remained for a really, really long time. Some impressive snowfall rates were a big story with this storm, up to 3 or even 4 inches an hour in some spots. So literally dumping buckets of snowfall as we headed through this storm. Let's see if I can jump back in here. Not sure if anybody saw this. Chris Christie had some not so wonderful comments for the National Weather Service in the days following this storm. Unfortunately, there's not sound that everybody's going to be able to hear, but basically said something to the effect of, I've dealt with the National Weather Service before, and really generated some conversation in the community as well regarding future funding of the National Weather Service and all that stuff. Certainly frustrating for the folks in New Jersey who did their best to forecast this thing, to have kind of a politician, somebody in a big place of power, talking maybe not so wonderfully about the National Weather Service. Another interesting little tidbit here. This is from one of the producers at the Weather Channel. You can see here over the first 7 days in March, pretty remarkable dichotomy where we had basically three cold records to every 2 warm high temperature records set, which is certainly in contrast to February, which was well above normal for most of the country. This tweet does say 3 to 1 in the last 7 days. I think it's more like 3 to 2. But even so, for March, we expect to be transitioning a little bit more into some warmer conditions. And March thus far, certainly here, has been cold as well. Here's a tweet from Steve just this morning. Pretty noteworthy thing here as well was talked about on Weather World last night. 11th straight day yesterday with average temperatures for the entire day being below normal. First time that's happened since the summer of 2015. So certainly noteworthy. I think we felt that it's been a little bit cooler here. We've had a couple of days where the high temperature's been a little bit warmer than average, but still the average for the whole day has been a little bit below normal. So I've coined this slide "Confusion in State College." Went through and gathered some data from the National Weather Service for State College itself. So if we look at our average temperature for February and then so far in March, you can almost see a flip-flop here. Our February was more seasonable for March, and so far our March has been more seasonable for February. That shows up in even the maximum and minimum temperatures. We hit 74 in February, which I believe was an all-time February and winter record. And then here in March, we got up to 61 early in the month, but still much cooler relative to February. And then precipitation-wise, again, you can see it's kind of this flip-flop where February was more like March and March was more like February. As we transition into kind of talking about what's ahead, I think March will moderate a little bit more. Maybe end up a little bit warmer so we can reapproach what our average high temperature for March is. But still, this has been a big storyline so far this winter, the difference between February and the month of March. Recapping it a little bit more as we approach towards what's going on now. This is a Weather Bell graphic that was posted by Ryan Maui, the guy who owns Weather Bell. This is a graphical depiction of the record loads the morning of March 16th. And the circles are where there were forecasts for low temperatures to break the records. These are all National Weather Service forecasts. It's kind of compiled together from the different offices. And now as it pertains to my research, this led to a pretty beautiful satellite image. This is the GOES-R satellite image. It does not include the city lights. There is a product that includes some of that stuff. I want to direct your attention just off the coast there. So you can see what are called cloud streets generated by horizontal convective rolls. And basically the way this works is you have much colder air from land that's blowing over the warmer and moister ocean waters, which can lead to this generation of these counter-rotating horizontal vortices. And in the updraft portion of those vortices, you end up getting these cloud streets to form. It's also pretty interesting to watch as you go kind of out from the shore. You can see they start pretty narrow. And as they get a little bit more moisture, a little bit faster wind speed. You can see the self-broadening or the expansion of these cloud streets. And then eventually in more of an open cell characteristic, which is indicative of Rayleigh-Bayard convection. So this has been pretty cool. And the neat thing about this with how cold it was so far south, usually these rolls are kind of confined more to the northeast off the New England coast, but because there was cold air extending so far south into Florida, you can see these cloud streets and horizontal convective rolls, and Rayleigh-Bayard convection extends pretty well into the, even down to the panhandle of Florida. So again, pretty cool stuff here. There's not a whole lot more I'm going to be able to talk about with my research because it's kind of a clear process, not super exciting as far as weather goes, but was tickled certainly by this satellite image last week. And now dichotomy. It's been kind of a roller coaster pattern for the month of March. These were the high temperatures for the day yesterday. As you can see, there's this ridge, this bubble of really warm air down through the Central Plains and especially Texas, Oklahoma area. I saw National Weather Service said Columbia, Missouri and St. Louis, Missouri both set records for the day yesterday, getting up into the 80s, and certainly in the Panhandle and down into Texas, many spots getting into the 90s. We're not going to see those temperatures quite make it up into our region as we have another cold front moving through tonight. But again, this kind of roller coaster pattern, highly amplified pattern, which is bringing us kind of these big temperature swings. Now, transitioning over to a little bit more of the meat of what we're going to be talking about today. So kind of just going through the last 24 hours here in State College, not a whole lot has been going on. Some light showers did kind of make their way into far southwestern Pennsylvania yesterday. Some light showers moving through this morning with some moisture going on. There was this big system, kind of not necessarily a squall line type thing, but certainly MCS moving through kind of West Virginia down into North Carolina last night. There were some severe thunderstorms warning issued with this system because of the strong winds associated with it. But all in all, not a whole lot of exciting weather here, just kind of cloudy and dreary for here in Pennsylvania. Now, looking at the visible satellite imagery for us today, certainly can see clouds that were kind of cleared out last night briefly, allowed our temperatures to drop down a little bit. But then we can see some of the fog developing over many of the ridges. Let me see if I can kind of click through and stop here in the morning. You can see certainly some of the low clouds that are hanging out in the ridge, or in the valleys, I should say. And general northwesterly flow, which was the driving force for a lot of those storms that went through much of the south and south central United States yesterday. As we go back and we can kind of check out let's see here. That's not what I want to do whatsoever. So we can pull up let's see what I'm trying to do here. Yes, the legacy radar for the United States. Let's see if I load up here. My apologies. So as we go through last 24 hours, quite a bit of convection precipitation in the southeast as this kind of weak system moved on through much of the North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina area. But again, not a whole lot of big activity going on here in the Pennsylvania area. Now, as we look at the Weather Prediction Center forecast and kind of an overview of what's happening right now. So currently, our synoptic setup, we've got kind of this weak low pressure system centered over kind of the Virginia, North Carolina area. There's a chance for some severe weather that we'll talk about here shortly, an enhanced risk. The main threat here is going to be strong wind. There's not a lot of convective forcing to generate any sort of tornadoes, not much here at this point. But what we're going to be looking at is kind of this weak cold front that's going to move through the area tonight. Don't expect a whole lot of precipitation with this thing, but certainly we'll feel the temperature contrast as we head into the day tomorrow. And then as we head to the weekend, another weak disturbance will come through the day on Friday, but will moderate quite a bit for the weekend. I want to show you as well some of the GOES East satellite imagery. Unfortunately, a lot of the GOES-R data is not quite operational yet to be able to show any sort of pretty pictures. But you can see just some kind of low stratus looking clouds here across much of the mid-Atlantic region. You do see this cluster of storms here as the loop goes through. They're going to be responsible for generating some of the high wind forecasts, or high wind hazards, I should say, for the afternoon. The enhanced risk that's issued by this Storm Prediction Center. A little bit farther out to the west, a little more active pattern, possibility for some storms in California this afternoon. In the interest of time, we're not going to dive into that too much, but certainly something to look out for. I understand this is a little bit difficult to see because of how small it is, but this is the 24-hour temperature change. I just want to point out a couple of things here. First, you can see this big area of significantly cooler temperatures, this colder pool of air that's kind of filtered in, certainly because we were so anomalously warm yesterday across much of the southern United States. But this is the colder air that's going to filter in behind the cold front. As we saw on the last surface map, the cold front's kind of dripping along here, going to continue sagging off to the south and east as we head through this evening. And we're going to see similar 24-hour temperature changes, supposed to get up into the low 50s tonight, dropping well into the 30s and into the 20s overnight. And then we're going to struggle to rebound much tomorrow. Now transitioning over, this is the Tropical Tidbits website, looking at the 500 millibar forecast anomaly. So if we start basically 72 hours ago, you can see this kind of little shortwave type thing that went through a few days ago, which was quickly replaced by this ridging. We had certainly anomalously high 500 millibar heights, a little bit warmer than normal, but then we see this kind of little trough inundate here. Now this is getting into tomorrow morning. This is going to be kind of tonight. Again, this trough is going to drop off to the south and east, bringing us some much cooler weather. There's still going to be a nice ridge of warmer temperatures over much of the central United States, which are going to end up winning out as we head into the weekend. We finally get some forcing. There's another system here over the coast that's going to help push this ridge and kind of break things up a little bit, giving us a little bit more of a changing pattern instead of this persistence. So you can see as we push through, especially heading into the day on Friday, we're looking to be pretty anomalously warm here across the Ohio Valley region, heading up into the northeast. There is this other system that we're going to, at this point, it's looking like will affect us heading into early next week, which would be kind of our next big rainmaker of sorts. But all in all, as you can see through the next several days, not a whole lot of excitement going on. If we look at our kind of precip changes again, this is just looking at the GFS. We'll look at some plumes here shortly, but just kind of a nice overview as we go through. Let me get back to the early part of the forecast. So you can see there's the low pressure system and kind of a weak cold front that's going to be moving through. This particular run doesn't generate a whole lot of precipitation for us, and I wouldn't really expect a whole lot overnight, maybe a little bit of some sprinkles kind of moving through. But then high pressure builds in for the weekend, and that's going to be kind of giving us generally clear skies as we head through the day on Thursday. And then Friday, we start to have a little bit more of an approach of some precipitation. Light stuff could be close to kind of that rain snow line in spots. We could see a few flurries mix in. But then as I was mentioning earlier, a fairly quiet and mild weekend on the warm side of this cold front that's going to move through, kind of a warm front draped across to our north, and then associated cold front extending on through. Heading into the long range, you can see sometime around Sunday into Monday, some sort of cold front is going to bring us some precipitation potentially. And then even in the longer range, another shortwave closed low type could bring us precipitation next week. But all in all, if we take a look at the temperatures themselves, I think we're going to find that things should be fairly mild after we get through the day tomorrow. Kind of one last shot of unseasonable air. So this is looking basically currently right now, you can see we're in the 40s. The cold front is going to drop through our area as we head into tonight, and we'll start to feel the effects of it certainly through the day tomorrow and even into Thursday morning. But then you can see this kind of ridge of much warmer air starting to push in as we head into the day on Friday, pushing potentially near 50. Certainly some of that air is going to get trapped by the mountains and not quite able to make it all the way up here. But then heading into the day on Saturday, you can see this particular round again is forecasting somewhere in the upper 50s, low 60s. Should be a pretty nice day. Probably cloudy on Saturday, but at least a glimpse of more spring-like conditions. And then again, persistent warmth through the day on Sunday. Want to just kind of look at some of the GFS plumes. You can see this. I think this tells all really. We're going to warm up quite a bit as we head through the day today, getting up into the mid 40s and 50, and then dropping off quite significantly as this cold front moves through tonight, struggling to rebound, probably not even going to reach the freezing mark necessarily tomorrow. But then we see this kind of general up and down trend that's trending upward by and large. Certainly some uncertainty as we get into early next week because of all those systems that are kind of moving through, where we end up as far as the amount of precipitation we get, the amount of clearing and cloud cover. But it is trending upward for the rest of March, which is certainly encouraging. One other thing I want to talk about, it's not necessarily here, but certainly something that is probably going to be talked about a decent amount, is the severe weather threat as we head into this weekend. This is the day 4, so Saturday, Friday into Saturday, the severe weather outlook. You can see this 50% chance region the Storm Prediction Center has put, and then that just slides a little bit farther to the east as we would expect heading through the day. So looking particularly at some of the things that are at play here. So this is looking at the 500 millibar height and relative vorticity. So clicking through Wednesday, you can see that this is the system that's going to be generating some of our chances for severe weather. You can see the Vort max, certainly divergence across kind of the region in question as we head through the day on Friday and then into the day on Saturday. And that continues on. The Vort max certainly weakens a little bit, but the Storm Prediction Center is queuing in on this pretty broad area of high relative vorticity, which could be a big proponent here. We can also look at some of the 500 millibar heights. Actually, let's go ahead and look at 500 millibar heights and winds once again. We'll be able to see again this broad mid-level trough, upper-level trough that's going to be coming through. Let's see if it loads up here, and you can see again on the eastern flank of this trough, you have a lot of divergence, which is going to allow a lot of these storms to generate. I think there could be some semblance of a tornado risk. It's a little bit early to tell at this point as far as kind of what our shear is looking like, but we can take a gander here and see bulk shears. We head through. Let's see here. It's taking a hot second to load. You would. So you can see again this area, certainly a decent amount of bulk shear coming through the region. So we could have tornado threat. It looks like, I guess, tomorrow into Thursday was going to be when they're going to start issuing their probabilistic outlooks for what that severe weather threat in particular looks like. We can bring it back home just to kind of start wrapping up a little bit to kind of see what we're looking at here. Go ahead and look at the, sure, let's pull up the NAM just for an overview of what we're looking at. We go surface and precipitation. Check out the composite reflectivity. Fairly zonal flow going on right now. You can see this as the cold front moves through, it is picking up on a little bit of precipitation that could come off to our south. Don't expect a whole lot with it. Certainly this cluster of storms, which is going to generate some of the stronger winds off to the south. Much colder weather, as you can see with these 1,500 millibar thickness lines. Northwest flow, not a whole lot going on. And then we do get this system coming through early Friday morning and kind of pushing through. You can see this is picking up on some sort of rain snow mix. It's going to be a pretty complicated forecast a little farther off to the north, where there's that battleground between the warmer and the colder air. Going to be certainly some overrunning at play here. But the good news is with the timing of this thing, it looks like, well, so far it's going to be coming around Friday morning, but the hope is that this can be cleared out in time for rush hour and for the day on Friday. And then let me pull up the GFS once more to look at a little bit longer term, specifically in our area. I'm going to pull up the temperature forecast here if I can. Let's see here. So a little bit longer range we'll be able to see. So this is Friday afternoon. Again, highs pushing up in the 50s. Pretty nice. You can see we're not too far off from that warm and cold battleground. but heading into next week, some pretty significant warming expected. A little bit cooler on, looks here, I guess Wednesday morning, but still not too bad. More seasonable with lows in the 40s. And then as we head through late next week, a little bit more of a chance for some cooler lows, but again, more seasonable this time of year with highs in the 40s and 50s into the afternoon. One other thing I want to look at, which I'm pretty tired of, is cold weather for sure. And so in particular, looking at the 3-month outlook, which is for, let's see, for April, May, and June. Looks like a pretty good chance of above average conditions as we're expecting from a precipitation standpoint. Not a whole lot indicating one way or the other what's going to be happening, but even as we look into the 6 to 10 day outlook, we're again in that battleground, like I said, between the warmer air and the colder air, and so it's not super clear, but certainly a little bit warmer than we've been in an 8 to 14 day outlook. Even still pretty nice, experimental. So all in all, we're expecting things to moderate a little bit. I think tomorrow's cold weather is going to be kind of the last punch that winter brings, where it's going to feel a little bit colder, but then heading into the weekend and into next week, we should start to see more spring showers. Probably the last winter precipitation will fall heading into a Friday morning with some of that mixed precipitation, but I don't really expect a whole lot moving forward. So we've got about 4 minutes left. Is there anything anybody would like to kind of touch on that I did not talk about? Or is there anything else anybody would? Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, good talk there.
Thank you.
Just want to point out the really high heat across Denver and Boulder and out with rain, fire danger.
Certainly, yeah. So we can check out Storm Prediction Center. We can go look at the fire weather forecast, see if they've got anything. Yeah, it looks like they've got critical fire danger. So the day 1 fire weather outlook, not a whole lot going on, but heading into day 2 especially, yeah, can certainly see quite a bit of fire danger here in New Mexico and pushing up into Colorado. All in all, again, that warmth, all that, the warm ridge of air they've had, and pretty strong winds. I was out in Denver over spring break for a few days and had high wind warnings issued, and was going hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park. One of the visitors went to the visitor center, and they were telling us about some of the different trails and everything, and said, be careful on this one trail, stay away from the edge, because somebody got blown off last week, which is pretty remarkable and horrifying. But certainly wind is going to be a factor here with some of the fire weather that's going on. One last thing I'd like to look at, if we go to the WPC up here, looking at the kind of days 3 through 7, just kind of looking at what we're going to be looking at. So this is a Friday morning again this week, going to be kind of moving through. And then we have this cold front draped a little bit to our north. Again, this is going to be the battleground. We're going to end up staying probably on the warmer side of the cold air, but it's not too far off to our north. It does drop a little bit as we head through the day on Sunday, but nothing super strong. Another little bit of a disturbance, and we're kind of just in this more zonal flow. Certainly there is some activity, but nothing huge in the outlook. So I think we're wrapping up at this point. Thank you guys very much for coming. I apologize there wasn't more exciting weather to talk about, but hopefully a nice overview of kind of what we're expecting moving forward.
I just have a quick plea for the students in the room, and it could be undergrad or graduate students. SUBAMS is going to be going to a local elementary school on Thursday night and judging some science fair there, and we're looking for students to help out. There are sign-up sheets around the room. People will be meeting up here at 5:30 on Thursday to drive over, and you'll be done by 7:30. So if you can help out, that would be great, because one of the things SUBAMS tries to do is some outreach opportunities. That would be lovely if you could help out. So thank you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Yep. Next week will be Charles Ross from the National Association State College.
John, do you want to start a little bit?